Okay. Alrighty. So Aquinas. Here's the deal. Reading Aquinas is not easy. But the work that we're looking at is called the Summa Theologica, which is Latin. He wrote in Latin, which is Latin for the sum of all theology. And so here we have the title of the work, the Summa, Theologica. And it is organized in a certain fashion. In fact, it's almost organized like the great chain of being. Remember that whole shtick there? And so sum, as you know, means like whole or total, right? So from the whole of knowledge, right, which really philosophy is the knowledge of the whole. So in a way, what Aquinas is doing is he's taking everything you can know about God and writing a book about it. So from the whole, we're going to move down, and it kind of goes into this fashion, right? From the general to the particular, right? That's the deal. And so here we start from the sum of things, and then we have parts. So the book, and it's a whopper. I don't own it. I only own selections of it because it's hundreds of dollars. These guys, he's writing in the 13th century, right, in the 1200s. And these guys in the medieval period, they're monks for one, and it's a different time, right? It's like, first of all, it's not like St. Thomas Aquinas and these guys are like, taking care of kids and making mortgage payments or anything, right? All day they have to indulge their intellect. And the other thing is, there's really not much to do to entertain oneself in these days except for read and write. So, it's difficult, I think, for us, one, to understand how these guys would write such huge books, and two, to deal with them ourselves, right? Who's got time to read 1,000 pages? And it's meant in Aquinas's purpose to be a discussion and to understand the nuances, because he's trying his best to arrive at truth. But it's a truth that requires a lot of leisure, right? So we don't have the same amount of leisure time. However, once we understand the way it's organized, we can be very strategic and sort of cut to the chase to the specific parts we want and make sense out of this without having to quit our jobs and become monks. So here's how it's organized. First is the sum, then there's the parts, then the parts are divided into parts. He calls it part of part. We are going to be looking at the prima secunda, the second part of the first part is what we're going to be looking at. Then the part of the part is divided into subjects. The subjects are divided into questions. The questions are divided into articles. So, Q for question, and we're going to be looking at questions 90 through 96. That's what we're going to be looking at. Now, each question is divided into articles. For instance, question 90 is divided into 1, 2, 3, 4 articles, and then there's like a shtick on each one. And each of these articles is, maybe a page or two. And then the articles are also divided up in a way. So he starts with an objection, then he gives his truth, then he says, I answer that, then he gives replies. Okay, let's kind of see what that looks like. So, sorry, I jumped ahead here. So here's the Summa Theologica. And unfortunately, this is from newadvent.org, it's called, which is a Catholic thing. And there's ads all over the place. Unfortunately, c'est la vie. So what we are looking for is this one, prima secunda partis. And we are following down to the part on law right here. And we're looking for question 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96. Okay, so that's the stuff we're looking at. So we're going to start at number 90 here, essence of law. And you'll notice the articles, right? The question 90, the essence of law. Is law something pertaining to reason? The end of law, cause, promulgation. Okay? Then in the article here, so here's article 1, right? Question 90, article 1, here it is. Whether law is something pertaining to reason. Now, check it out. You get an objection, an objection, an objection. And what these objections are is this. Whether law is something pertaining to reason, objection is the answers to no. So in other words, these are going to be other philosophers, sometimes scripture, whatever, all kinds of other sources that are going to answer that question in the negative. Okay, so they're going to object to that. Then he's going to say, on the contrary, and he's going to give you like some sort of claim or thesis. It belongs to law to command and forbid, but it belongs to reason to command, as stated above. Therefore, law is something pertaining to reason. So in other words, that's where he's saying is the truth right there. And then his I answer that. This is his dialectic, I guess you could say, where he's taking the opposite. He's taking a positive and a negative, an answer yes and no, and he's trying to debate and put it together. And this is where he comes up with his thesis, which is a response or an amalgamation or sometimes a compromise between the yeses and nos. So what Aquinas is doing really is he's trying to create consensus. He's pulling together all of these sources, and from these sources, which are all legit, he's trying to come up with the best answer. So what's interesting about Aquinas is that a lot of times we know more about the guys that he has chosen to argue against because he chose to argue against them. In other words, he does a great job in explaining and even quoting some stuff that's not lost. But, Jewish philosophers, Arabic philosophers, ancient Greeks. And so, in other words, he's not like throwing any sources under the bus. He's saying that, these are all legitimate sources. So if he talks about, Al-Farabi, or he talks about whomever, it's like, these guys are worth considering. Anyway, and then you have these replies to the objections where he'll go back and he'll say, okay, so because of what I said, now you see why objection 1 is false. Now you see why objection 2 is false, etc. The point is, for us when we're reading, we can just go to the I answer that. We don't really need to think about the objections and replies. And the I answer that's are sometimes only a paragraph or a couple paragraphs long. So that's how to read it. So in other words, really, once we get used to it, this essence of law, if we just pay attention to the 1, 2, 3, 4, I answer that parts of question 90, we're really only reading a couple pages. So it's not that bad, despite the fact that the book itself is huge. One more thing I wanted to show you in terms of how to read Aquinas. This is our course. I put together this little study sheet thingy that you can download as a way to like organize and make your Aquinas reading simpler. And if it ever opens, all it is I took the questions 90 through 96 and I listed them by way of their articles with the space in between so you could make notes. So as you're reading, just print this out. Seriously, is it ever going to load? What the heck? Just print this out Okay, well, whatever, man. Here it is. Print this out, and you can keep it with you, and then just right here, question 90. There's the 4 articles, and then right in here you can just write down a couple of sentences to summarize it. And then that way you've got like this whole sheet here where you can get a sense of everything rather easily. So my point in all of this is that Aquinas can be pretty difficult if we let him be. But if we sort of understand this, overall organization, and realize all we really have to do for ourselves is to get into where the heck is my pen, man? All we really need to do is get right here. I answer that. And when we do that, put it on our chart, it won't be that difficult.